to part 2 of Couch Potato Diary. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Coming up on part 2, we are going to be looking at the NHL action from the weekend, one team that I'm just sick of. We will also get into the NBA, and then it's a lot of combat sports, looking at boxing, the UFC, and the WWE. If you're looking for NFL talk, that is over on part 1. All right, let's get into it, looking at some hockey. Ladies and gentlemen, the Toronto Maple Leafs are cooked. I'm done. I'm over this team. I'm not even a Leaf fan. This isn't, the media talks about them too much. It's these guys. There's nothing new to talk about. There's been if this was a TV show, there's been no character development from the last 8 years. Like, it's the same story all the time. And just what a pathetic showing for this franchise right now. You have to blow this all up if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs. I see no other way around what is happening. I'm not saying like trade Matthews and all these guys, but there needs to be substantial changes. It would be a wild overreaction to get rid of Treliving after 1 year, but Shanahan has to go. The Shanahan plan clearly hasn't worked. Sheldon Keefe continues to get outcoached. No matter who he is facing, Sheldon Keefe gets absolutely outcoached. And this roster needs at least a rejigging, because what we saw this week was just simply not acceptable at all. And I'm tired of the excuses about this team. Oh, well, William Nylander was out there for the first couple of games. So you still have Matthews, Marner, and Tavares. Oh, Matthews is a little under the weather. So you still have Nylander, Marner, and Tavares. That's why you go out and get 4 players like that. It's not so you can have a cool nickname. It's not so that you can come out and score 85 goals a game and start to celebrate and make a couple nice jokes when someone scores 69 goals in a season. It's so that when one of the guys isn't going, you still have 3 who should be able to pick up the slack. No one is feeling bad for you that, Nylander's a little bit banged up. You only have Matthews, Marner, and Tavares as your superstars who can step up in this series? Oh no. Boston lost Bergeron and Krejci to retirement last year, and they are wiping the floor with this team. So I don't care that Matthews, well, yes, best player on the team. So it sucks that he goes down with that he is limited with an illness. You still have Nylander, Marner, and Tavares who should be able to pick up the slack. So no, I don't give a shit that Nylander has migraines. I care for him. That sucks. I don't give a shit that Matthews is dealing with an illness right now. From a Leaf standpoint, there should be guys around here who can step up. This is year 8 of this. 8. If this is 7 years ago, then yeah, okay. A couple of your core pieces are out, but you still have some new guys around. You're trying to figure it all out. And yeah, Boston has kind of goaded you into a couple of slugfests, but you're young, you're figuring it out. You should have figured this out by now. I can't wrap my head around how it's this bad still, how there's been no progression still for this team. Another thing I can't figure out, why does it seem like John Tavares is just being let off the hook in all of these things? Like, I get it's cute he had pajamas with your team on it, but these are the times, these are the moments where your captain and your leader is supposed to step up, and he has done none of it. A power play goal, sweet, fantastic, great, which, for this team has been quite the hill to climb, but for the guy who was brought in to take this thing over the top, he has done no such thing. And I don't think he is a hindrance to this team or anything like that. But these are the moments where your captain is supposed to be the one who's like, you know what, guys, I get it. William Nylander, he had the aura in his eye for a week and a half now. His head feels like it's exploding. Hop on, I got us. Yeah, Matthews just puked on the bench. It's a little gross. Hop on, I got us. He's done nothing of that, but everyone's focusing on, Nylander and Marner were yelling at each other. Oh no, I want them to be yelling. I want everyone on that team to be yelling at themselves right now, because this was dreadful. By all means, have it show up on the ice, but Tavares should be the one yelling at these guys to get their heads out of their asses, because it's been so bad out there. I don't understand. I keep coming back to 8 years. This group has played about 60 playoff games together, give or take a few. Marner was at 54. The rest of them should be around that number. These are not things that should be giving you problems in playoff game 55. These are things that give you problems in playoff game 5, and you figure it out. So I feel like it has to be a big change. The fact that it is the same problem year after year after year. At the very least, this was supposed to be done after last year when they finally won in the first round. So you have to make, I think, a significant change here. Some of the messaging has really frustrated me too. Keith coming out and saying, well, you know what? Of all the things you can say, can't question the effort. That's not comforting. I wish you could question the effort. It's either effort or you suck. And effort is a whole lot easier to figure out this time of year than suck is. Suck, then you just suck. Effort, at least you can try hard. And I do think that the Leafs are actually trying hard. I think the problem is they're trying hard in the wrong spots. And I don't want to do you know what the problem is? These guys care too much. Because I don't think you're out carrying the Boston Bruins right now in this series and just losing. I do think that there is a lot of effort being put into making the perfect this and making the perfect that. But again, these problems should have been fixed 4 or 5 years ago, and they're not. So spare me the effort thing with this group. The other one is, well, it's been a close series so far. It's just things haven't gone our way. You notice how losers are the only ones who say that? And it's wild how, and I'm tired of this in every sport. Oh, you know what? Just lost a few close games, man. Couple didn't go our way. It's just, those are the breaks of sports, and you just wash your hands of it and move on. Isn't it weird how the teams at the top always seem to win those games? And, well, there are exceptions, of course. The Minnesota Vikings from a season ago, like just a remarkably unsustainable run of competing and winning in very, very close games. But for the most part, they're the exception, not the rule. For the most part, the really good teams always find a way to win those close games, and the really bad teams are always the ones blaming luck, blaming the refs, blaming the bounces. Like, oh yeah, just a couple bounces didn't go our way, or else we would have been right there. Again, that's not as comforting as you think it is. That means that when the games matter the most, your team is failing. And when the games are the closest, the good teams are finding the ways to win. The good teams have the structure and the talent to be able to go out and execute so they can go out and win a hockey game. Whereas you are waiting for the bounces and hoping that your power play can just click and just throwing out the same fucking thing year after year after year. So spare me with, oh, well, the games are close. Yeah, and you keep losing them. Maybe figure out how to change that instead of just, oh, well, we were close. Better luck next year. No. No, you have to figure out how to be better, because the Boston Bruins keep winning close games. The Colorado Avalanche keep winning close games. Vancouver Canucks were President's Trophy threat for most of the season. Wild how they've figured out to win a couple close games against the Nashville Predators. There are certainly times where, speaking of Vancouver against Nashville, there are certainly times where you lose a close game even though you have wildly outplayed the other team. And it's just, sometimes shit happens, man. And I get in the playoffs, it is a 7-game sample size if you're lucky, and then it's over. And so a weird bounce or two can put you in a bad spot, and that sucks. But to just say, well, it's been close, is not nearly good enough. Because again, it's wild how the good teams 95% of the time put themselves in the best spot to win these games. Just crazy how that happens. Same thing happened out here a while ago. Oh, well, the team was in a bunch of 1-goal games in the third period and just lost a bunch in overtime. It's like, yeah, because they suck and they don't know what to do with the whole winning time thing. Like, that's, learning how to win, real skill. Leafs haven't figured it out. One team that has, the Colorado Avalanche, have absolutely figured out how to win. What an unbelievable performance in Game 4 to take a stranglehold on the Winnipeg Jets. And, like, you talk about, it's funny because the rest of the playoffs this weekend was about big players, stepping up. Makar, unbelievable goal. Nathan McKinnon, just fucking awesome. Brock Besser, monster moments. Big players stepping up in these big games. And now you have the Avalanche. Any concerns about their goaltending, they're just outscoring that problem. So yeah, we'll just have the puck always. And Connor Hellebuck, I think I saw a stat, he's allowed the most goals in the postseason, but he's also made the most saves this postseason. Like, he's just getting peppered. And this Jets team, I am surprised at how overwhelmed it feels right now. Like, they get the boost from the crowd in Game 1, and it's a wild game. But aside from that, they are white knuckling this thing, and it is white knuckles as it's flying towards the ditch. So I am a bit surprised by that from this team. I did not anticipate this group to feel this overwhelmed in this series, and I don't think they're able to get it back. But my pick of Colorado to win the Stanley Cup, looking pretty good right now, because they look fucking awesome. And for Vancouver, an unbelievable comeback to be able to now have the opportunity on home ice to win in Game 5 and put this one away and be able to rest for a little bit and just catch yourself. Because the playoffs, it is every other day, aside from this one, because they're traveling all over the place. But for the most part, excuse me, it is every other day, and everything's flying at you. And it's, okay, was this is, to be able to take that step back and just breathe, I think is going to be very important for this team. So putting this one away in Game 5, I think is going to help. Because it seems like the opponent that you're going to have in the next round, the Edmonton Oilers, also feel like they're going to put theirs away in 5. And I think the rest of the league is cursing the LA Kings for letting Stuart Skinner get into a rhythm, because he has been really good these last couple. That Oilers team is clicking on all cylinders, and they look really dangerous right now. But again, funny what happens when the best players step up at this time of year, right? Okay, let's shift gears now to the world of basketball. Speaking of top players stepping up, what a performance this weekend from Jalen Brunson. So much for my worries that the 76ers had figured out Jalen Brunson. Holy shit. Brunson with one of the all-time great playoff performances in Knicks history. Not the, but one of the great performances, and certainly of the last 20, 30 years, at least in my lifetime. That's a performance that would have happened to the Knicks earlier in my lifetime. This was Jalen Brunson just putting his stamp on it. Look, you guys may think you have this figured out. I am going to make my mark in this series. And he did in such a big time way. And now for the Knicks, you feel like you've got it rolling, right? You survived Brunson trying to get this thing figured out. You know how to get him going. And the other players who have stepped up continue to step up. I still feel confident, in a heart. I still feel confident in what OG Anunoby is doing defensively and in what Hartenstein's been able to do down low against Joel Embiid. And with it looking increasingly more likely that they would be playing the Pacers in the second round, you're feeling really good about how your team stacks up right now. But Brunson being able to get going is such a gigantic. I know I'm not breaking any news here. Star player playing well really helps basketball team. But this was such a big moment for this Knicks team to be able to come out and come away with that one, instead of this series being tied at 2 and then questions about hey, maybe Philadelphia's figuring some stuff out. Brunson, another in a long line of superstar performances, comes up big. And for the 76ers, they just seem to just be a step behind the Knicks. And while a few of these games have been close, when it gets down to winning time, I just don't think they have it. I don't think Embiid has it coming back from the injury. They've got nothing from Buddy Hield, which was, I thought, a sneaky good addition at the deadline, but he has done nothing. And that, it feels kind of over for him now. Kyle Lowry, I don't think you could have asked for anything more. I don't think you could ask for more from Maxey. It just feels like they are outgunned right now with Embiid not at 100%. They're an interesting team going into next year, but I do think that they are pretty well done right now. The other NBA note I want to get to today is just how done the Phoenix Suns looked, and they are screwed. That was supposed to be the cakewalk for them. Not cakewalk, but things broke perfectly for them against the Minnesota team that they had dominated throughout the regular season. And then the Timberwolves just came out and continuously punched them in the face and dominated and dominated and dominated and dominated and dominated. And the Suns had no answer. And that should not be the case when you have Booker and KD. I don't care about the rest. When you have Booker and KD, you should be able to figure it out to at least be able to win a game. And so now they're stuck. Because you're not trading Booker, you're not trading KD, you can't trade Beal. What's Nurkic going to get you that is going to help this team? You are all in on this group of 3, and it didn't work. Honestly, that Beal trade looks a lot like when the Lakers went out and made the move for Russell Westbrook, and I think they're still paying for that. They have recovered from it exceptionally well, but they are still paying for it, and I think the Suns are going to be paying for this Beal one for a long time. They made the big swing on the wrong guy, and I think it is really, really going to backfire on them going forward. Like, you could justify maybe, like, you know what? Gave it a shot, didn't work. Let's try to blow this thing up and start over again. But they've given up so much to go out and get these guys, it wouldn't make a lick of sense. Like, they feel like they could be stuck in a bad spot for a long time. All right. It was a big weekend in the world of sports, just in general. We did a full NFL breakdown in the last show, and now we've done NHL and NBA. Coming up this weekend, it is a gigantic time in the world of fight sports. Let's start off talking about the Ultimate Fighting Championship. UFC 301 goes down this weekend from Brazil, and it ain't much, I'll tell you that. We are still going to be previewing it throughout the week here, because that's what we do, but it's a touch underwhelming. I will say that. It is, I think, a terrible follow-up to UFC 300. And I think that's the big story here, is that this company had so much momentum coming out of UFC 300. And I do think not putting Pereira on this card in a heavyweight fight against whoever, random tomato can from Sao Paulo, comes in and gets his head kicked off by Pereira just because he happened to weigh 245 pounds. I think you needed to do something to keep that ball rolling. But instead, it's just a one-night good night for the UFC. Now, 302 looks good. 303 is going to be epic. But for right now, the UFC does feel like they've kind of lulled after what was a real high for this for this company. The Brazil crowd is going to be great, so that could save it, but it's not going to make this worth any kind of money at all. Like, this does really feel like a good fight night card. Like, wow, we're getting a title fight on a fight night. That's awesome. But in the main event, it's Pantoja against Usyk. That I don't think makes the main card for UFC 300. And UFC 300 was a special card and a special night and all of those things. But to come back with this is really underwhelming. And so I get wanting to build the hype into UFC 300 with big main event at 298, big main event 299, leading into UFC 300. It took away a bit of the star power for UFC 300, but it didn't completely kill it, obviously, because what an amazing night. But I thought they should have done a better job of following it with, like, and now we have this, and now we have this, and now we have this, because now, like, you've made the UFC, I'm not going to say irrelevant, but there has been a whole lot of UFC talk since, like, the Wednesday after UFC 300, and this is going to feel like a very skippable pay-per-view, and you don't want to build that in. You want to try to keep that momentum rolling. And so I think they've done a bad job with it. Again, all due respect, Pantoja against Usyk is going to be a fun fight, but to follow up what we had and to lead into what we're going to get, it feels like a very skippable night. And in the co-main event, Martinez against Aldo, it's an interesting fight. It's not a co-main event. On a pay-per-view? No. It's main event's a fight night for sure. Curtain jerker, 100% on the pay-per-view. Get that crowd rolling. Yeah. But the King of Rio being in the co-main event now in 2024? No. Nope. So, not a great card. Hate that it's a pay-per-view. The fact that in this day and age, in this financial climate, that people would be paying like $70, $80, $90 for this pay-per-view, that's a pass for me, man. That's pass. I'll pass. But we'll still cover it all here. We are very busy here this weekend, so in all likelihood, there won't be a big breakdown or anything over the weekend. We'll just be reacting to it coming up on the Monday. But throughout the week, we are going to be previewing it. Coming up later this week, we're going to get a Jose Aldo Legacy look. We've done that already, but I thought it'd be a pretty good time, since he's fighting again, to go back and relive why this guy is one of the best ever in the sport of MMA. We're also going to look at the undercard fights to get ready for. That probably won't be a very long segment. And Friday will be the full preview of UFC 301. But that is not the only major event that will involve people punching each other in the head as we get ready for Canelo Alvarez fighting again on Cinco de Mayo weekend. It is Canelo Alvarez fight week, and this is the thing that I'm most excited about. With a big weekend coming up with 301, with Backlash, and this is the one that is the main event for me. Canelo against Munguia. This is going to be a blast. I think we've seen Canelo, or we just saw Canelo's best performance in a while in the last fight against Charlo. And so I think that has reinvigorated a lot of the conversation around Canelo Alvarez and a lot of the excitement around this guy. And so I do think it's going to be really interesting to see what type of Canelo shows up. Is he going to be that hunter one more time going up against a Munguia? Is he going to be content counterpunching in this fight? We'll get into the breakdown as the week goes along. He may not have a choice when it comes to the counterpunching because of how Munguia goes about his business. But they're at least coming off of that Charlo fight. There at least now is a buzz again around Canelo Alvarez fights, and it again feels like a big deal because coming off of the loss and then the Gennady Golovkin, and then the Ryder, this is now like, okay, we've seen it again. Now let's keep that ball again, keep that momentum going, and I think it's going to be a crazy fight because Munguia is just allergic to not having entertaining bouts. He is the type of fighter that I think will bring it out of Canelo Alvarez. Because Canelo, because of how he is so technical and so quick and can read fighters so well, he likes to counterpunch. Munguia is going to give him a lot of opportunities to counter because the first shot's going to be coming a lot. And so I think that pressure from Munguia is going to... I think it plays right into Canelo's hands. So I think it's a tough matchup for Munguia. You can see why he takes it. Like, it's going to be the biggest fight of his life. And if he wins, holy shit. But I do think that the style-wise, it becomes a little difficult for Munguia to manage. But I do think that this is it's such a smart fight for Canelo to take. And look, like I said, it makes sense for Munguia. This is going to be the biggest payday of his life. It's going to be the biggest stage he's ever fought on. And if he happens to land one of the 45,000 big shots that he throws, then I'm not going to say he's now all of a sudden a superstar, but it at least transfers into another payday, which you can transfer into another one. Like, you can, even if you lose, you can build a few decent paydays in a row off of losing to Canelo Alvarez, especially if you do it in a fun fight. And so I think for the Canelo brand, this one makes a whole lot of sense because I think it is going to be an action fight. I think it is going to be a very visually appealing bout, but I think it is going to be remarkably winnable for Canelo, and it plays into his styles really, really well. So I think this was a smart bout for Canelo to take. And I do think there's going to be a lot of conversation coming out of this one about, are we getting a David Benavidez fight coming up Mexican Independence Day weekend back in September? That is it's the last big fight, I think, for Canelo. Not that this isn't, but this fight is big because it's Canelo. That fight is big because it is Canelo against the guy who a lot of people think is going to take that torch from him and run. So is it a torch passing fight, or is it Canelo reasserting his dominance as still the guy, not only in Mexican boxing, but in boxing in general? Because there's been a lot of talk over the last year and a half about who is the face of boxing. Make absolutely no mistake about it. The face of boxing is fighting this weekend, and it ain't Munguia. It is still Canelo, and he has, I think, set himself up now to push forward and get quite a few still real big fights out of this run. We're going to have a lot of coverage on Canelo throughout the week. Coming up later this week, we're going to do the legacy look on him, and we are going to be doing a full fight breakdown coming up on Friday. So that is it for that. Let's get into some wrestling talk as the WWE follows up WrestleMania with Backlash. So much like the UFC's slightly underwhelming follow-up to UFC 300, WWE has a slightly underwhelming follow-up to WrestleMania. And this is always a tough time of year to get those things really going again, and especially this year. It was a 2-year build for Cody to get to that spot, that culmination with all the old stars coming back. And while a feud against AJ Styles is fun, A, ain't nobody picking AJ Styles to win this one. B, this doesn't feel like that we're doing mutual respect angle. Come on, that's not getting me excited for this one. I'm happy that it's not a pay-per-view and it's just a PLE, and I'll be able to watch it with the Sportsnet subscription I pay too much for the shitty quality that they have. But I do think that this is going to be this is back a few years ago where the build hasn't been amazing. You're not overly excited going in, but when you sit down and watch, it's gonna be fun as heck because I think Cody and AJ are going to tell a real interesting story. And I do think, like, we're doing the mutual respect thing here. If you wanted to do this as Act 1 in a chapter and drag this thing out a little bit, AJ Styles could be a dick. And if they want to kind of reassert the OC and tell a Bullet Club story and all of this, I think there's a way to do that in the main event with a bit of an attacker or whatever. I think there is a way to heat this one up for May, June, July, getting into SummerSlam season or leading you into SummerSlam before we're anticipating getting some big names here. I think there is a way to really ramp this thing up and get it back going while Cody looks like Captain America. It's just we're not at that stage yet. Damian Priest against Jey Uso. It's two guys who feel very new to the title scene. I will say that. And so like you are in the business right now of creating stars, especially on the Raw side. So like the line from Something to Wrestle, the best way to make someone feel like a main eventer is put them in the main event. And that's what they are doing with Damian Priest and Jey Uso. It does feel a little underwhelming, a touch, but I think bigger things are ahead for both of these guys. And I'm intrigued at where this all goes. So there's nothing on this that is just kind of like, yeah, you know what? This was a real bad story. I hope that this is just the end of it. Like, there's nothing that's been offensive. There's nothing that has been underwhelming, or well, I guess all of it's been underwhelming. But there's nothing on it that's been bad. It just hasn't been, like, since the night after WrestleMania, you haven't really felt that, all right, let's keep going. Like, there's a bunch of sports on tonight. I'm probably going to watch Raw after everything, or maybe have it on while other stuff is going on. It doesn't feel like, all right, yeah, let's build into this. And so I think there needs to be a bit of a momentum. And I understand this year's WrestleMania particularly, it was the end. And now we are going into this new era, this new year of WWE. But a lot of times you do get like somewhat of a WrestleMania rematch or a carryover to add a bit to it. But everything on here is just starting. And so we'll see how they're able to go with that. Just one more thing on the WWE side, because we didn't do a show after Raw this week. A lot of like the Becky Hogan memes on social media. I actually thought it was a smart idea by WWE to go with Becky Lynch as the women's world champion, because you have your whole title picture thrown into flux. And I said before, and a lot of people were saying, this is a chance to create new stars. With all due respect, a battle royal on Raw ain't the place to do it. So I think if you have a plan in place to build a Liv Morgan, a plan in place to build whoever, right? Zoe Stark, Tiffany Stratton, whoever. If you have plans in place to build these performers up going on, then just go with All Reliable. Go with Becky Lynch. She is a star. Put her in the championship spot. Just slide her into the Rhea Ripley role. Everyone stays where they are, and you're not rushing a Liv Morgan. You're not rushing a Tiffany Stratton. You're not rushing a Nia Jax or a Kiana James or whatever. Just to, well, we've now made a new star, because so many times that doesn't work. Continue to build up those performers to where you feel they are ready to take on that championship thing and run, so that they are already established when they get the title, not the title making them established. So I think Becky Lynch is the nice, safe move. It does feel a little underwhelming doing it off of just like it's a quick thing like, okay, what are they going to do? It's a chance for a new, it's the same. So I understand that, but I think it was the smart move creatively for WWE to allow them to build up the rest of this roster. All right, that's going to do it for the show today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I didn't get it to before in the basketball. I meant to and just flipped a page and forgot. But Candace Parker retiring from the WNBA today, an unbelievable career, and something I'm going to do more on it later in the week. But like one of the more important players, I think, in WNBA history, and it's like, look, I'm happy she's ending on her own terms, and she probably has mucho media deals out of this or whatever. It would have been fun for her to stay for a year or two in this next wave of WNBA growth. But the reason the WNBA is able to grow is off of the back of a number of people, but one of them, and maybe the biggest, is Candace Parker. So I just wanted to throw that in there, but we'll do more on Candace Parker throughout the week. That is going to do it for the show now. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Remember, rate, review, subscribe if you are listening in podcast form. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a review, leave a comment if you are watching on YouTube. Follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm at Primetime Klein, twitch.tv/PrimetimePK. You can email the show, couchpotatodiary@yahoo.com. We have a lot coming up the rest of the week. More playoff reaction. A ton more on the Basie Combat Sports Weekend. Plus, haven't done the season-ending Blasty Banter yet. Have probably run out of time to do it today, so that'll be tomorrow. And we got to talk about the Blue Jays. That'll be coming up on the Catlin cast later this week. As I said in part 1, it was all about the NFL draft. Football Friday will be about the NFL draft from a fantasy standpoint. So tons more to talk about as the week rolls along. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will talk to all of you later. I'm out.